Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer of Spiked. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Jeremy. I'm good, thank you.
Welcome to Mad Great Britain, where everything's up the Swanee. We start with the chaos at number 10, Brendan. Extraordinary scenes yesterday. No doubt, allies of Starmer thought they'd get ahead of the game and come out and say, you know what, he's strong, he's committed, he will fight any challenge. All that did was bring Streeting out of hiding to say, it's toxic, we're not doing this, we need to get on with the job. The backbenchers, as I watched Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday, were utterly extraordinary. I've got a couple of clips I'd love to share. It's all come down to this Morgan McSweeney, I'm told, the Chief of Staff. Morgan McSweeney, who apparently makes everything happen. Starmer refused to back him first. This was a great view. Have a look.
The Prime Minister is not going to do anything about the toxic culture. This is his responsibility. Just last night, his allies accused not just the Health Secretary, but the Home Secretary and even the Energy Secretary of launching leadership bids. These attacks came from number 10, nowhere else, his toxic number 10. The person responsible for the culture in number 10 is his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Does the Prime Minister have full confidence in him?
No. Morgan McSweeney, my team and I are absolutely focused on delivering for the country. And let me be clear, of course, Mr Speaker, I've never authorised attacks on Cabinet members. I appointed them to their posts because they're the best people to carry out their job.
That's the first thing I'd worry about, that he's actually described his cabinet as competent people. I think he got rid of Chulit Siddiq, his Bangladeshi corruption minister, because she's being done for corruption. I think he got rid of his transport secretary because she's actually a criminal who nicked a mobile phone. The list goes on and on. How incompetent, Brendan, in your mind, is this Prime Minister and this government?
It's the most incompetent government of my lifetime, or possibly the most incompetent government ever. I mean, what a complete shambles. And the thing that's really striking about this current scandal of backstabbing and leadership bids is the level of paranoia in Downing Street. Like, they are obviously, Keir Starmer in particular, is obviously just a very paranoid man. He thinks everyone's out to get him, and I'm sure some people are. He thinks the world is falling apart around his ears. He doesn't know what to do. And that's indicative of the fact that he is catastrophically unpopular with the public. He has no vision whatsoever for the country. He has no meaningful control over his own ministers and his own cabinet. This is a man out of control. It's like an emperor in his final days. It is actually almost tragic to watch it, but it's also funny at the same time.
I mean, that's the point. And then what's gone on from that this morning on the show is that people are going, listen, he's incompetent, he's rudderless, there's nothing in his DNA that smacks of, like, you know, I'm a conviction politician with a vision, just an over-promoted human rights lawyer. And then you think of the alternative. I think very few times in history have Labour got rid of a leader. But here's the reality, that the party's rules are if 20% of the parliamentary party join forces. In Labour's instance, that would be 81 MPs. They've got 405. That would force a leadership campaign. His allies, Starmer's, went further yesterday. They said he would, you know, he'd put his name on a ballot if that happened. If he was ousted, if those Labour Red Wall MPs, Brendan, went, blimey, listen, I don't mean to be disloyal, but I'm going to lose my bleeding seat here unless something happens. We want to... The reality is the Labour membership would vote, and Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood and anybody on the right wouldn't stand a cat in hell's chance. The reality, if you look at every poll this morning and every bookmaker's list, that the two front runners would be Angela Rayner, who'd have to leave her new company that she set up called Wrong Move, and, more than that, Ed Miliband romping away. Ed Miliband, that net zero zealot, could be the next Prime Minister, Brendan O'Neill.
You know how you have no idea who's worse. Is it the Labour leadership or is it the Labour membership? You know, they're all a bunch of nutters, the lot of them, as far as I'm concerned. The thing is that if you look at the current clash apparently between Starmer and Streeting, I don't actually mind Wes Streeting. I think he's an interesting guy. He's a good media operator, whatever. But it's the thinness of the clash that is most striking. Think about factional wars in parties in history. Think about the wets and the dries in the Thatcher era. You know, the wet Tories versus the dry Tories. that was a real clash over the future of the country. That was a disagreement within a party about how to run a country. There was real substantial differences of political opinion. What we have here is just a party falling apart, collapsing before our eyes. It's like, backstabbing. It's very Shakespearean, lots of skullduggery. There's no meaningfulness to it. There's no substance whatsoever. Replacing Starmer with Wes Streeting, which is what some people want, would be replacing one cardboard cutout with another. There is no substance here at all. And then, of course, you have the membership potentially sweeping in to elect climate change lunatic Ed Miliband or discredited idiot Angela Rayner. What an awful choice this country faces as long as this government is still in power.
And that's my next question. We've got 3.5 more years of this, and whatever your political persuasion, I think most people can look at what's happening and think this is farcical. There are many people texting this morning saying, if this goes on, this country will be skint. Well, here's me to tell everybody we're skint already. What was it this morning? The UK economy grew by only 0.1% between July and September. All this growth has gone out the window. We're about to have a budget that's going to raise income tax for almost everybody across the social spectrum. We can't even afford the interest on our debts. We're borrowing, something 180 billion a year. The whole thing is so catastrophic, and there surely must come a point when the Labour Party can't blame the 14 years of disastrous Tory rule, because actually somebody put it really well earlier, Brendan. They've managed to do what took the Tories 14 years in 14 bleeding months. It is an absolute disgraceful mess. And what would happen? What will become of this country in 3 years' time? Can you see a situation a bit like Liz Truss, where the markets, where so financially in trouble are we, they are forced to call an early general election? I know Farage has said he thinks it will be by 27. What are your thoughts?
Well, the thing is, the reason I hope there's a leadership move against Starmer is not because I think there's anyone of high quality to replace him in that stupid party, but because often when you have a prime minister who comes in that way, there has to be a general election. Not always, but usually a prime minister feels, look, I should go to the public. I can't have power just because I was voted in by some members. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping there'll be a leadership bid, and then eventually that will lead to an early general election. But I just want to commend the British public on their patience, because just think about how patient ordinary people are being right now with this government that is collapsing the economy, making it even worse, which is backtracking on all its promises, which doesn't know it's behind from its elbow when it comes to how to run a country, which talks about growth but delivers anything but. And people are, I think, being very patient. They know it's a complete catastrophe. They know it's a disaster, but they're biding their time, I think. They're waiting to pounce. And I think they're going to do that when the general election comes, and people are going to register their absolute disgust with this government by voting for reform or voting for Greens, please don't do that, or voting for one of the other parties as a way of saying, listen, Labour and Tories, you've messed up this country for more than 100 years, and we're going to take a chance on someone else now.
Apparently we're going to play a clip. This is very exciting. This is the would-be next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, ladies and gentlemen. If Keir Starmer is forced out, Labour members have intimated in a poll that mad Ed Miliband, that net zero idiot, would in fact be your next Prime Minister. Here he is speaking strangely to the BBC this morning. Can I just put a little caveat there? I'm not sure if this has been edited. Who am I to guess? Have a listen, have a watch.
Would like you to focus on a person who has briefed in Downing Street against the Health Secretary.
They should be sacked.
Can you brief us on the investigation? Is there currently an investigation going on to find out who that person is? Can you tell us the nature of that investigation?
Well, I know that the Prime Minister will want to find who that person is and will get rid of them if he can find it. The truth is, Charlie, as you know, it's because you've been around this a long time as I have, it's often very hard to find out who does this briefing. Because journalists understandably protect their sources and you can never get to the bottom of it. But of course, if Keir Starmer finds that person, I've discussed some of this anonymous briefing with him in the past, he'll get rid of them. I have absolute faith he will do that. He hates this stuff.
That could be our next Prime Minister, Brendan. That's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, he failed so spectacularly as the leader of the opposition, was ousted by his own party, ridiculed. Do you remember tablet of stone with his aims. Do you remember that? I mean, and as for eating a bacon sandwich, geez, man, that's great. We'll watch that with interest. Loads of other stuff in the news as well. Today, the BBC will issue a formal and direct apology to President Donald J. Trump after he threatened to sue the corporation for £1 billion. We haven't spoken about this. We've spoken in the past about the BBC. I take the one thing about Trump and I move it to the side. I think the BBC is at a really important point. Similarly, even I think they need to be on a level playing field. I think the licence fee is long overdue for defunding. I don't get how so many scandals, starting with Savile, ending with Maxine Croxall, bless her heart, daring to say pregnant woman. Oh, wow, shocking. In the mix, you've got that Gaza documentary, you've got Bob Villan going deaf to the IDF, all that stuff. I don't think two people's resignations are enough. I think the BBC needs to be forced to make take a long, hard look in the mirror. The Charter's a couple of years away. The thing is, they're not answerable to anybody, are they, Brennan? They get 5.39 billion quid a year and they run amok and they are not unbiased. And in my mind, they cannot be described as the national broadcaster because they've got an ideology behind them.
Absolutely right. They've been corrupted by ideology. Now, the BBC has always had flaws. It's always got things wrong and done things we've disapproved of, etc., etc. But, you know, cast your minds back to the 1980s, the 1990s. We would gather around the BBC to watch Top of the Pops, to watch David Attenborough documentaries, and to watch the news because it was generally impartial and would tell you what was happening in the world. The BBC used to be an incredibly important institution. In some ways, it was the glue of this country. It drew people together in front of their TV sets. That doesn't happen anymore for two reasons. Firstly, we live in a whole new era of television. We have the subscription model. People choose what they want to watch. They pay for what they want to watch. That is completely different to the 20th century. And also, the second, more important thing is the BBC now bows down to these crazy elite ideologies that the vast majority of people reject. Trump phobia, Israelophobia, the trans issue where the BBC will lie to our faces and tell us that a man is a woman, the climate change hysteria, which I think the public is getting sick and tired of. The BBC was front and center of all of those panics, all of those ideologies, all of those lies, which it foisted on us for the past 20 years. Something's got to change radically, and I don't think changing the people at the top is enough.
Couldn't agree more. Couple of other stories that I just wanted to pick your brains on because I know they've absolutely gone here and I know they'll go with you. Firstly, ISIS bride Shamima Begum, this has really got a response this morning, should be allowed back, says an anti-terrorism review. Her husband currently in jail, I think, for 6 years. She married an ISIS commander, was sat there whilst people were being murdered across the world. She had, I think, in 2017, her citizenship revoked by Sajid Javid, apologies, I nearly said that horrendous man from London's name, he's always on my mind. And people are going, oh, well. Now, just to throw at you what a text said to me earlier, because I put it out there and it got quite a lot of response. What do you say to the man, Chris, who texted me and went, yeah, well, I would have her back and I'd put her in jail, because would that not strengthen our argument to get prisoners, foreign criminal prisoners in this country, taken back by their countries? I don't know. What do you make of that text?
It might do, yes. But I just don't trust that she would be put in jail. And I don't think she'd be put in jail for very long. That's just not what our country is made of anymore, sadly. You know, let's be honest about this. She is a traitor. She committed treason. She committed the worst crime against her nation, the nation where she was born, that it is possible to commit, which it means that she went off to join a bunch of hysterical religious fanatics that was devoted not only to killing people in the Middle East, but also to killing people in Europe and in the UK. She joined forces with our mortal enemy. That is treason. That is one of the worst things you can do. That is as bad as Lord Haw in the 1940s, making excuses for Hitler's Germany. You know, when Brits commit these kinds of treasonous acts, we should treat them incredibly seriously. She ripped up her own citizenship when she joined ISIS, when she threw her lot in with those homophobic, misogynistic, racist, supremacist terrorists. And I absolutely disagree with the idea that she should come back. She made her bed. She should lie in it.
Very interesting. Couldn't agree more, actually. Wes Streeting, who was in the news yesterday, apparently briefing, and then came out and said, I am absolutely not. Number 10 is toxic. Has overnight accused the BMA of acting like a cartel over its pay demands. You'll remember that when Labour came to power, they gave junior doctors 20-something% and went, no, it's great, and everything's sorted. Oh, surprise, surprise. 23%, I think. 12 months later, they're back, and Streeting and all his cronies are going, oh, so that isn't enough. I had a doctor on earlier saying, pay's not great, conditions aren't great, the BMA don't speak for me, and strikes aren't where it's at, but we need more money. I simply said to him, and I'll say to you, how do you think that looks to the average Joe going to work today, hasn't had a pay rise in 3 years, who's struggling to pay his electricity bill or his food bill at the end of the week?
It looks terrible, doesn't it? You know, there is so much economic hardship in this country right now. There are people who've not had a pay rise in years and who are struggling because the cost of living is going up, but their pay packets aren't. And they will not be happy to see this. And especially think about the fact that, you know, getting a doctor's appointment is near on impossible in this country. And when you do manage to get one, it's not always a great service. And the NHS does often let people down. I know we're all supposed to bow down to it as this great holy institution, the best thing in the United Kingdom, but actually it often isn't. It's often a creaking institution which doesn't serve people very well. And then you have struggling people, can't get a doctor's appointment, even though they pay all their taxes, and then they see these people protesting for more and more and more. I think it's going to really tick people off.
Mate, it's great to have you on. Will you come back next week? We love having you here. Brendan O'Neill, thank you so much indeed. He's the main man at Spiked. We love him.